Good afternoon. I welcome you and thank you for being here today as we mourn the death of Richard Brady and celebrate his life. I am the Reverend Jim McGaugh. I am the minister and pastor of this congregation. In our Unitarian Universalist tradition, services to honor loved ones who have passed on are often very personal and personalized occasions. These celebrations of life are developed by a family of the deceased and the presiding minister to specially and specifically honor the memory of that individual. Let us be honest with death. Let us not pretend that it is less than it is. It is separation. It is sorrow. It is grief. But let us neither pretend that death is more than it is. It is not annihilation. As long as memory endures, Richard's influence will be felt. It is not an end to love. Humanity's need for love from each of us is boundless. It is not an end to joy and laughter. Nothing would less honor Richard than to make our lives drab in counterfeit respect. I light our flaming chalice, the symbol of our religious tradition, with these words. For this hour, as we remember and celebrate the great light that Richard Brady brought into this world, may this flame remind us of that radiance and the ways in which it made others' lives grow brighter.
I understand this was one of Richard's favorite songs.
Unforgettable, that's what you are. Unforgettable, though near or far. Like a song of love that clings to me, how the thought of you does things to me never before. Has someone been more unforgettable in every way? And forevermore, that's how you'll stay. That's why, darling, it's incredible that someone so unforgettable thinks that I am unforgettable too. Unforgettable, though near or far. unforgettable in every way. And forevermore, that's how you'll stay. That's why, darling, it's incredible that someone so unforgettable thinks that I am unforgettable too.
This poem by Mary Oliver is one that I read frequently at services like this one, as it gets right to the heart of what it means to live as each of us does, with a sense of our own mortality, a sense of the impermanence of all living things. Each of us has experienced the black river of loss that this poem describes and the fires that surround it. Each of us has seen the cycle of birth and life and death play out in the lives of family and friends. Each of us has seen this same cycle reflected in the seasons of the natural world. It is the way of all things to come into being, to live, and to die. The salvation that the poet refers to in this poem is not a known quantity. Salvation for this writer lies not on the beautiful shores of some faraway paradise, nor does it exist in some pearly gated home among the clouds. Salvation in this context is whatever lies on the other side of loss, something that cannot be known as we are experiencing that loss, but only when we get to the other side, which is always obscured from us. The final verse of this poem is an amazingly clear and beautiful statement about the human condition. Look, the trees are turning their own bodies into pillars of light, are giving off the rich fragrance of cinnamon and fulfillment. The long tapers of cattails are bursting and floating away over the blue shoulders of the ponds. And every pond, no matter what its name is nameless now. Every year, everything I have ever learned in my lifetime leads back to this: the fires and the black river of loss, whose other side is salvation, whose meaning none of us will ever know. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. Joe's going to share a beautiful reflection now that he has written about his husband, Richard.
I'd like to welcome the Brady and Barker families that are here today, my childhood friends from Holy Innocents Parish, the friends from the Area Agency on Aging, Pennsbury Village, the Embassy, the Sunnyhill beloved community, and all those here that have been a part of our lives over the past 45 years and made this celebration of life possible. Richard was born in 1942 during the Second World War, the first of two sons of Virginia and Elmore Brady in New Kensington, Pennsylvania. He described his childhood as a simple but loving one. His earliest years were spent on a military base in Florida, and this is a photo of his parents and Richard dressed in a Navy costume. His brother Don and Richard were always close, although Richard, being the eldest son, seemed to think he always held the advantage over Don in that family. Richard became a hairstylist after high school and worked at Saks Fifth Avenue and Elizabeth Arden's at Kaufman's downtown. He had a large and prominent clientele. When I worked downtown in the 1980s, I would meet Richard at Arden's salon, and he would introduce me to some of his customers. As I was a Pittsburgh boy from a working family, I was absolutely starstruck by the names of these customers that represented the industrial and retail families of Pittsburgh. On one occasion, a limousine picked up Richard at our home so that he could do Teresa Simoes Ferreira's hair before her wedding at Heinz Chapel to John Heinz, senator and heir to the Heinz food fortune. Richard was an excellent stylist, and his clients and clientele loved him and valued him. I met Richard at a 1980 Memorial Day picnic at North Park Lodge. He approached me, I did not know him, and asked if I would like to go out with him, and the rest was history for the next 45 years. Many of you did not know Richard except for my sharings, and I want to tell you about his loves and an interest during this celebration. Let me warn you, he was a character. Richard loved color and colors. We lived in Key West for 23 years, and he really enjoyed planting and nurturing colorful plants. His specialty involved colorful hibiscus, bromeliads, frangipani, and bougainvillea, and they filled our yard with beauty. He loved furniture with painted designs and bright paintings and colors. Much to the consternation of our neighbors in Old Virginia Manor, he chose baby blue paint for our shutters on our house in that rather stark and stone neighborhood. It certainly was a talking point on Parker Drive. He also loved our families. He valued our families, both Brady and Barker. My father, we called Pap, or lovingly, some of us called him the old man, treated Richard like a son. And in the first year we met, my father held a birthday party for Richard. This moved Richard deeply. And you can see this is my father's birthday party years ago. There are now many more of us, but we sort of filled the screen. And my dad loved this photo so much that I thought it was important to add. Now, Richard did not get in the photo because he was overeating a piece of the birthday cake. The other photo is a picture of our Brady family at a wedding for Shannon with our nieces and some of their husbands and Richard and I, and we remember that moment very lovingly. It was just a wonderful time. Richard loved television sitcoms, as many of you have heard from me. The Beverly Hillbillies, Burns and Allen, I Love Lucy, Will and Grace, The Golden Girls, to name just a few. He could watch these episodes dozens of times and laugh every time. My challenge and despair occurred when Richard found on Roku that The Nanny had 6 complete seasons. Very depressing. Richard watched The Nanny endlessly day and night for months, and to me that voice sent shivers through my spine. To me it sounded like someone was strangling a macaw, but he loved it. He was also, interesting enough, fascinated by military shows, and I foolishly purchased, because he wanted me to, the cable package with 3 military channels and several streaming channels with military films 24 hours a day. There is no experience quite like waking up at 2 in the morning to hear and see the World War II German armies surrounding and bombarding Stalingrad, Russia, with the cannons and the lights, and the dog and I clutching to each other. His response to me was, "Since you're awake, can you get me a bowl of Turkey Hill marshmallow ice cream and do not skimp?" Other times during the night, he would ask for a grilled cheese sandwich homemade. Honestly, I would do it all over again. Daily sweets. Richard never met a sweet item he did not like. I think it runs in the Brady family. For example, one day when the hospice nurse was with us at the start of her home visit, she always would ask Richard, "What do you need?" And his response in early March was, "I want 4 maple log crawlers filled with cream from Giant Eagle." My response was, "I will be back in 15 minutes. I think the nurse expected a more medical response. Richard loved traveling. Sometimes we went out of the country twice a year for 20 years. His favorite place was Peru and Machu Picchu, the abandoned Inca city in the mountains of Peru. However, on a trip to Italy, we so enjoyed the tour of the major Roman Catholic basilicas in Rome, and it was a first experience for Richard being immersed in Roman Catholicism in that visit. And the guide said to all of the tourists, "Can you believe these large stone steps were brought from Jerusalem to this basilica by the Emperor Constantine's mother, Saint Helena, the stairs that Jesus climbed with a cross to get to Calvary?" I looked at Richard. I thought before he responded, I whispered, "Do not answer that question." On another trip, we decided to spend 2 weeks in Russia with friends, and Richard told Pap, my father, and my Pap looked at him and told him, "Why don't you two go somewhere safe like Niagara Falls or Geneva on the Lake?" And here is a picture of Richard and I and Frank and Alan, our friends in Moscow during that 2-week tour. And my Pap made me call him once a week to make sure that we were not captured by the secret police. Richard loved our friends. We had so many good friends over the years, and we enjoyed so many occasions. This photo shows a surprise birthday party for Richard in 1983. It's at the rectory at Christ the Light of the World Parish in Duquesne. My dear friend, Father Colin Marino, hosted that for Richard and insisted that he wear a crown as a part of the birthday celebration, which he took off immediately. Another thing Richard enjoyed in life was telling absolutely preposterous stories. Some of those I cannot dare share during a celebration of life in a church. One story Richard told me and family members, especially Dawn's nieces, and Richard thought I was a clueless city kid, so he thought I would believe this. He told us that when you were out in the countryside, horses could overeat and they would explode in the field right before your eyes. And we laughed and then would joke about it, but he would tell it again and again. One of our sweetest times together was each evening we had a routine. We'd eat dinner together. We'd watch local and national news, Jeopardy, and the Wheel of Fortune. We made this our time, and Richard would reach across the table and hold my hand and tell me on more than one occasion, "You know, I'm the best thing that ever happened to you. You'd be a mess without me." And he said it often. Lastly, and most important to us were our weddings. We were a lucky generation. We were married in a civil ceremony on July 19th, 2013 in Maryland, when Maryland approved same-sex marriage, and then in a church ceremony in Orlando at First United Universalist. on February 28th, 2015, and this is a photo of us after the ceremony. We were, as Richard and I knew, the fortunate ones. Both of our families attended and supported us as a married couple, which for many of our friends, they found that extremely extraordinary and rare. For example, the wedding photo hours that same day at the church involved a young gay couple that we knew, and none of their family members would attend. Richard and I knew we were very fortunate, and we knew it. And we valued our families, loved them. And one of Richard's almost last out-of-home experiences was at my brother and his wife, Ed and Sue's home, and we are seated there in their living room. And of course, Richard would always tell me, I love Sue's cooking, I love the conversations of your family, even in the midst of what he considered to be a chaotic house. And he loves Sue's cookies. His other joys, which I won't get into, but I cannot skip, is he loved, to my consternation, Johnny Cash, every song that he ever did. He loved Taco Bell once a week, and he would sit and scheme and think of shocking statements that when he saw our friends and family next, he would share. He loved to scandalize. Another completely different side of Richard was his secret and hidden kindness. He did a number of extraordinary kind actions in his life that he did not tell others, even our families. It still moves me to think of what he did during the early time of AIDS in the 1980s, when many afflicted with AIDS had limited resources and no support. In many cases, now this is 1984 and 1985, people were afraid of these folks with AIDS and even to be near them or in the same room. Richard decided to deliver meals to these folks suffering and dying from AIDS on every Monday, his day off. He would pick up the meals at a donating restaurant and deliver the meals to 8 to 10 homebound folks. As time went by, he would go to the grocery store in the morning and buy items that he knew they liked to supplement the meals, things that he also would like, cookies, candy, snacks, but they very much valued them, and they sent him thank you notes during his time doing that. He delivered those meals for over 2 years because it was hard to find someone that would enter those homes and deliver food and want to spend time with them. And Richard would, in many cases, sit and pray with them and give them solace in addition to the food. Things he really never told almost anyone outside of myself. A second example, one of the persons Richard delivered meals to was Roger. Roger was being evicted from his apartment. He had limited or almost no financial means. Richard came home after delivering the meals one Monday, and he said he wanted Roger to live in our efficiency apartment attached to our home. We rented that out to tourists. Roger had a very small subsidy from a local organization for some rent, approximately 20% of what we would make from renting to tourists. But Richard demanded that we do this, and he used these words often in life: you and I, we are the lucky ones. Roger lived with us for almost 4 months before his death, and Richard included providing Roger dinner on every night as often as he possibly could in order to spend time with Roger. Lastly, after Richard's first retirement here in Pittsburgh, I came home from work at the Area Agency on Aging, and Richard informed me that he went and received a job offer, and he was hired as a clerk starting tomorrow at Virginia Manor Giant Eagle. He loved it. He met another worker named Mitch. Rich learned that Mitch was not buying his medications due to the cost of the copay. And I never quite understood how Richard did this, but at Giant Eagle Pharmacy, he set up a fund from his money. He paid the copay for Mitch's medications until Mitch was on Medicare. These acts by Richard were quiet and unselfish. They represent Richard's recognition, belief that you care and always help for those least fortunate. Richard attributed this to the upbringing with his parents and his Methodist church upbringing that inspired him to do that good and not accept praise or public recognition. Richard was officially diagnosed with Parkinson's over 6 years ago. We said to each other the phrases on a daily basis, "We are in this together. We make a good team," and we would hold hands and we would say that. We shared it every day, and he liked the sharing, and if I forgot, he would say, "Let's do the sharing." We made a joint decision that Richard would stay at home until the very end and not in a facility. We organized in-home support through Concordia, nurses, personal care aides, physical therapists. We hired caregivers to be with Richard when I needed to leave the house to go shopping, to doctor's appointments, and to come to Sunnyhill, which really gave me the strength every week to be a better caregiver. Over the last several months of his life, he would thank me for everything I would do for him several times a day, simple things like bringing him a glass of water or finding the remote to turn on the TV. He was at home and with me, and that is what we both wanted. Richard was good for me, and to me, up to the very end. Richard talked very openly about death towards the end. He was not sure about the existence of heaven or hell. It perplexed him. However, he did want to be back in the presence of his parents, in whatever way that looked like. Although typical of Richard, even during the most solemn discussions, he stated he had a major hesitation and concern about life after death because he believed there was a potential lack of cable and streaming channels. Then we go back to speaking about caregiving and the end. This concern, and he mentioned it more than once, he often said with a slight smile and a playful glint in his eyes. He was ready to die. He told me. Richard died the morning of March 12th. Okay. At 3:45 at home with me. Excuse me. Upon Richard's death, a friend sent me a plaque that helped put a perspective on my grief and loss. The plaque read, "A limb has fallen from our family tree that says, 'Grieve not for me. Remember the best times, the laughter, the songs, the good life I lived while I was strong.' Richard, I say to you, I and many others remember you in those experiences. I miss you every day. We were both fortunate. We had each other for 45 years. What more could I ask for in life? You were and are loved, and you are greatly missed." To those of you gathered here today, please, I thank you so much for being here with me, being so loving and supportive, and taking part in this celebration of life with me.
If there are any others of you here today who have a personal remembrance or a brief story about Richard that you would like to share in front of the congregation, I invite you to come forward and do so now. Is there anyone with a story or remembrance to share? I do have one thing to say. I regret that I never got to know Richard, but I do know Joe pretty well. And I cannot imagine a more compassionate, loving, caring caregiver than Joe was for the last years of Richard's life. For all of us here, and I think for all who knew him, it was an inspiration and a beautiful thing to witness. It's a rare thing and something that should be remembered and celebrated. One of the rituals we do in this congregation during memorial services is to invite people to light candles in memory and in honor of the great light that those who have passed on brought to us. So at this time, as we sing musical meditation, we invite anyone who feels moved to do so to come forward, light a candle on this table, place it in the sand, and then return to your seats.
Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
We'll read this poem together, Afterglow. I'd like the memory of me to be a happy one. I'd like to leave an afterglow of smiles when life is done. I'd like to leave an echo whispering softly down the ways of happy times and laughing times and bright and sunny days. I'd like the tears of those who grieve to dry before the sun, of happy memories that I leave when life is done. I invite you to stand in body and or spirit and join us in singing Blue Boat Home. Even if you don't know the song, the tune will be familiar to you.
Though below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now. Never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry sea, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all ye kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the light of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hear the great winds urging me on. Greet the infinite sea before me, sing a sky by sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home.
Please be seated. Before I read our closing words, I want to let all of you know again that you are invited and encouraged to stay for a time of fellowship and refreshments immediately following the service in just a moment, just next door in our fellowship hall. Also, there is a plaque that has been installed in Richard's memory in Sunnyhill's Memorial Garden here in the backyard behind the corner of our sanctuary. And you should feel free to visit the garden anytime you wish. For now, we'll close with these words. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not your mind. You can love me best by letting hands touch hands and by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. As you go, may you go in peace.